to be recording to the computer. So welcome everyone to week 9. We're short a lot of folks today, so I'm hoping they're going to be joining in, and I'm going to answer Francine's question in just a moment, give a few more people a chance to come in. We are wrapping up the semester. I did have a chance to go into Blackboard and into TaskStream today, and it's really looking good for most of you. There's a couple of folks that have some things to do, so it appears that the biggest things that's sitting out there for a lot of folks is the folio portfolio, or the folio and the log. So make sure that you are tackling those. Remember, the due date, the drop dead due date for that is next Monday. What was the due date this Monday was for the CAP and for the SIOP. And if you have not completed the SIOP, you still can be adding those in. That was sort of our soft date for you to make sure that you have those things done. So if you have not completed the SIOP, don't stop, because you can be submitting it anytime this week for me to grade and for Dr. Bullis. Now, let me also say, if things are slowing down between Dr. Bullis and I will no longer require that you have to have that memo on there that he has reviewed this. I just want to make sure we speed it up so we meet all these deadlines. So the deadline yesterday at 9 was for the CAP and the SIOP and all those other 4 projects you did in 601, 603. The deadline that's coming up this coming Monday is a hard deadline. So if you've not done, and it is all TaskStream. So you need to go into TaskStream to make sure that you have completed everything that is required of you. It's not just the CAP and the SIOP, but there's the competency analysis, there is the dispositions, there's the survey, there's the folio, there's the log. So make sure all of those things are taken care of. So go into your TaskStream tonight and make sure those things are taken care of. Now, there are about 4 or 5 of you, maybe 6, that aren't quite at that point level for an A yet. If you are still doing TaskStream stuff, put that aside and take care of TaskStream right now. I do not have to turn in grades until next Tuesday night. So Monday at 9 a.m., you have to have TaskStream taken care of. You can work like the dog all day Monday and get me my points I need in order for you to make an A in the course. Now, many of you have already made an A, many of you have already taken care of TaskStream, but there are a few of you out there that still have some things to do. So check TaskStream to make sure you have it there. Make sure everything is completed in TaskStream by Monday at 9 a.m. TaskStream, remember, is that big old portfolio that we send to the state of North Carolina that says Gardner-Webb University puts their stamp of approval that you have gone through a rigorous program and you deserve this extra master's. So make sure when we send that in on Monday, when the state is requiring it from us, please make sure you are all set and ready. Now, the other thing I noticed in TaskStream this morning is that you also need to check, and if you have something called callback, that means that you have a message from someone that something isn't quite right. And most of the time it's in that log section where you may have mistakenly put this semester's log there. That log is for all 3 semesters. So it should be 240 plus hours. So that generally is the thing that would happen when you get that little message. All right, so Francine, what was your question again?
Related to the big takeaways for licensure in my state's North Carolina.
Okay, so licensure issues are handled by Wendy. And what will happen is once that you complete your course, once we finish on July 26th or 27th, I think is the final cutoff date for the university, then your transcripts will start being populated and generated. It'll take about 2 weeks for that to happen. You can't do anything until your transcripts are ready. And at that point, Wendy's going to send you an email, Francine, that tells you the exact steps that you need to follow. So be on the lookout for an email from Wendy, from Turnfield, but that will have step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5. And if you have problems with that, then Francine, that you would reach out to Wendy, because she is the gatekeeper for everything that goes to the state of North Carolina and for TaskStream for that matter. So you will get an email. You haven't gotten it yet, have you? I know y'all just met last night, but you will get an email from her and it will lay out step by step by step. Nothing can be done though until those transcripts are generated. And so that will probably take Gardner Webb a week, week and a half, or 2 weeks after the July 27th date to turn around and get them to the state and to certify it. If you are interviewing for a job and you need a letter saying that you've completed the program successfully, reach out to Dr. Lamb as the chair for our department. He is the only one that can write that letter for you. And he will be glad to give you a letter that you just simply take in and share it with your administrators or whoever you are interviewing with. So that's how that'll work out. Any other questions? Oh, you got an email today. Awesome. Everybody get that? An email about your names on your diploma? Awesome. That means you're probably going to get one, Sarah. We hope, right? All right, so good. But you'll also be getting, that's from the registrar's office, but be specifically look for something from Wendy about the next step of certification from North Carolina and South Carolina. All right, any other questions?
Dr. Stone, I have one question about the logs. You said that we have to upload all 3 of them in a separate thing as 240 hours. Is that what I was understanding you saying?
All right, someone who's done the log, is it correct that they're looking for one document, or can you send 3 separate documents as long as it shows you've got all your hours? Someone who's already done it that can answer to that? I want to make sure, Aaron, that
I submitted 3 separate ones, just titled like log 601, log 603, log 605. I got that information from Sarah, but it appears to be correct.
Yep.
Okay, I did the same thing. I just wanted to make sure I didn't need to combine it.
But now you all of you should, when you hang up tonight, go into TaskStream to check to make sure that you are everything is completed. Thank you for that question. All right. Any celebrations? Any great news? Great, super good news happened this past week or is happening?
Dr. Stone, I have some great news.
All right, Angela.
I made it to the second round of interviews, well, the final round for a dean of student position, and it's only 2 of us. And the person that I have to interview with, I actually worked close with her last school year. Well, you know, this past school year dealing with a crazy parent. So I feel confident.
Oh, great. Angela, next week we expect to know some answers. Then you got to share with us that had all worked out. So congratulations.
Will do. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
But tell me, what is an angry parent? What is that? I've never heard of that.
Oh, I know you playing.
Oh, Angela, let me tell you, as superintendent in Caldwell County, I saw one every day. So in welcome, I saw Marcus, it was never about you, but it was about something. All right, anyone else? Great news.
This table, so I cut my.
Anyone else got some good news to share, wants to share with the group? I love it when y'all do that, by the way. It's so affirming because that's the purpose of this program is you guys are in the cohort. So I hope you're going to be friends forever. And so
I'll share something, Dr. Stone. My son, it's not about me, but my son has been accepted to Gardner Webb and will be moving in August 13th to pursue the nursing degree at Gardner Webb.
that's awesome. That is awesome. Make sure that tell him to come by and introduce himself to me.
I will, and maybe I will too.
Please do. Yeah, when you move in, I think I'm helping with the move in day. So maybe you can make your way to introduce yourself to me. All right, anyone else? All right, let's turn our attention then to, is there anything that we as a group could help someone with in our thoughts and prayers, or kind of just keep remembering folks? Anyone want to share anything? You don't have to. You can just say, remember me, and without details, and we will certainly remember you in our prayers. Well, it sounds like it's a perfect week. Only good news. That's awesome. All right, so let's start with what we've got to do tonight. We have 2 big things we got to do tonight. We are going to do a case study, and we are going to do an in-basket activity. To next week, we're going to do interview, we're going to do celebrations, and final Gardner Webb stuff. So that's our big thing tonight. So there's one change that I'm going to have to make tonight. I have been asked to do, by the university, I've been asked to do a presentation on how we use case studies. And so guinea pigs, thank you very much for volunteering. You are going to be my guinea. I had already planned to do a case study tonight, I'm just gonna format it a little different. Only one big difference is that I have to record it and use it during my presentation in August. So tonight, when we do our case study, we are going to divide up into groups, and we are going to read the case study, and we're going to come back and we're going to talk about it. There are some questions that have to be answered. You'll individually have questions. But here's what's going to be slightly different. You'll notice I'm recording, and tonight I'm not recording on my in the cloud. I'm recording on my computer because I'm going to generate this and turn it into a YouTube video that I can use when I have to do my presentation. So at the end of the case study, we are going to take a 5-minute break, and I am going to close this session. That does not mean you will go away, but you'll have to come back. I will send you immediately a new link for you to come back to do the rest of the lesson. We probably won't be here an hour and a half tonight, but I just wanted you to know I need a visual, and this is about the best way to do it. So does anyone object to being a part of my case study video if I share it with other faculty members here at Gardner-Webb? I don't know why they asked me to do it, but we're going to give it a try. All right, you're so awesome. Maybe it's because I have awesome classes. All right.
Dr. Stone, I didn't know if you're making it as a YouTube video that you can cut it in YouTube.
Come again?
I didn't know if you're turning it into a YouTube video that you can cut the video in YouTube and cut out what you don't want to use.
Really?
Yes, sir. As long as you have a YouTube channel, you can do that.
Well, Wendy, that is probably like way, way, way here above my level. So then it would be better just to keep on going. Because I know when I cut off my computer, that's when it starts converting it. All right, we'll play it by ear. I'm just confused, and you guys are confusing me with technology, and you're smart, so I just don't know. We'll see. Thank you though, Wendy. All right, so let me very quickly share my screen, and let's look at my Blackboard shell very quickly. A couple of things. One of the questions tonight, if you missed the interview session that Dr. Lamb did last night, or the town hall with information about certification, if you will click on that special interview session, July 18th, at some point, there is the video, and it's like an hour, I believe, maybe a little bit more, but it's well worth it. It's something you can save, you can download, and it'll give valuable information to you. So if you missed something, you may want to go back and look at that. The other thing I want to remind you is that there is a final reflections. We have it in the class shell tonight, but it is also under this class. That's something that Dr. Lamb needs for some research that the university is doing. It isn't really about MELS 605. It's about your MELS experience, or your experience with Gardner-Webb. Not to be confused with those surveys that were sent out last week, I think Wednesday, which we'll talk about in a moment. But this is something that Dr. Lamb is using the university is using for research. So it's a quick little 7-question, and it's really about your entire MELS experience. It's not about any of your instructors. It's about your experience that we can grow from. And then, of course, I will populate graduation information when we get it. So I am going on to class session 19, and you guys are going to hear me talk a lot tonight because you have done a phenomenal job of making sure that everything is done. You've done a great presentation. So here's our agenda tonight. We're going to do, I think I asked for Q&A. We're going to do the case study, in-basket Q&A. I do want to remind you, keeping up with your grades, there are about 4 or 5, maybe a few more that haven't quite gotten to that A mark. But my goal is for all of you to be there by the end of the semester. And by the way, once you get there, you really are done. I'd love to see you get up to that 3,300 or perfect scores. But if you want to take a sigh of relief, once you get 2980, you may do so because you've earned the grade of an A. Now tonight, the case study is going to be revolving around the concept of North and South Carolina legal responsibilities. So I want you to click on that, or if you are just following me, just follow along. In North, and this is what I'm doing now is I'm setting the framework for our case study. A case study is usually is always something that has happened. It is something that is where your audience, where you and I can stand back and we can look at it, and we can, in a non-judgmental, in a non-time sensitive framework, we can make a decision and then have discussions about it. When you become a principal or you are the assistant principal and that problem comes to you right away, you probably won't have the luxury of spending, particularly if it's a serious problem, you won't have the luxury of spending a lot of time dissecting it. So a case study is designed to kind of throw a real life situation out there, try to protect the names and all, but to give you as a group an opportunity to discuss it, talk about what you would do in a safe environment and certainly without a lot of time restraints. So that's the purpose of case studies. And I will tell you, about 2 years ago, Gardner-Webb, the School of Education, and particularly the MELS program, really decided that we wanted to use case studies. And I know in 603, because I was with most of you, you had, what, 3 or 4 case studies in which we talked about a different concept. So a case study is based upon a teaching concept that we want to share with you, the instructors. But the greatest part of this is how you share with each other. So that's our purpose of our case study. So our case study tonight, the entire concept that we're looking at is the powers and duties of principals. So this is North Carolina General Statute 115C 288, which spells out the powers and duties of principals. This is not new to you. We covered this, or we talked about this in one of our earlier sessions. But in the great state of North Carolina, it's pretty clear. If you become a school principal or an assistant principal, because assistant principals are defined as principals by the state, here are the things that you are required to do, and they are by letters. So the one that we highlighted was letter G, and because at the time we were talking about that, and we were talking about some of the scenario or the case studies in which you were working on. But here is what North Carolina requires. All right, so, and then at the end of that, you see all the other references that have been made to North Carolina. Anytime you see something like a 2005, that means it's been revised. 2009 was the last time in which this was revised. Now, I don't want my South Carolina friends to feel neglected. So South Carolina doesn't call it the duties and responsibilities of principals, but they call it something else. They basically call it the general provisions. So this is the equivalent South Carolina law or concept on duty to report. It's Title 59, Chapter 24, Article 1. And within that, it spells out what are some of the responsibilities that the principals, and it's not as clear as North Carolina's, but it does, if you are in South Carolina, this is one that you certainly need to highlight. But it does basically by section tell you the requirements of you as a South Carolina administrator. And I want to call your particular attention to 592460. Wonder where that 5924 comes from. 5924. So this is the section 5924. What number was it again? Anybody remember what number it was? I
60, I think. you said.
60. Oh, there it is. So this is the one in particular I want to call your attention to tonight. It's just like the one that's highlighted in North Carolina. So the duty to report in South Carolina is under section 592460. It is in your law, just as it is in North Carolina. So if the state of North Carolina, the state of South Carolina says it's important enough to put into a law, then it is important that you as an administrator follow it. So our broad concept tonight is your legal requirements and your ethical requirements for your students. Our base of that is South Carolina law 5924 and North Carolina law 115C 288. All right, so there you have it. It should be open to you. It's available to you within your all right, it's available to you there in your Blackboard shell. And I need to go back into Blackboard. I don't know why I got out of it. All right, I am going to open up case study 1. I'm going to make it available. And if you guys will refresh, if you are following on the computer, awesome. If you're just following me, you don't need to. But if you are following on the computer, you will need to refresh in order for it to open. All right, that one's open. So who did I not open? Must have been the first class. Hang on. I'm slow, but I get there. All right, if you will refresh. At this point, it should be open to you, but if you're just simply watching me, I want to spend our next little bit of time looking at how we do case studies and this particular case study, which is number 1. Now, somewhere down here, I have opened case study number 1. Here it is. So when you open your case study, this is the scenario that you are going to be looking. Can everybody see my screen, or am I talking to myself? Oh, you guys are, I am not sharing. This makes me look so bad. I may not want the other professors to see this. Can everyone see my case study 1 now? Thumbs up.
Yes.
All right. So what we're
Yes.
going to do is we're going to divide up into groups, and I am not going to try to prearrange you by groups by your group that you've been working with all along. That's complicated. So I am going to just randomly assign you to a group. Now, within this scenario, and you're going to read the scenario, take some time, and I am going to assign different groups, question 1, question 2, question 3, question 4. So you will only be responsible for reading the scenario and your specific question. All right, so here is how we're going to do that. I'm gonna stop sharing so I can go back over here to stop, go back to my breakout rooms, and I am going to open. I'm not going to do that, so I'm going to recreate.
Time do we have?
Pardon?
How much time do we have?
You have 15 minutes.
Okay.
All right. How do I have I assigned people things already?
Just says that you've opened the breakout rooms. Please wait to be assigned.
Oh, okay. Well, this is awesome. All right. I am assigning you as we go. All right, where is it? Oh, here they are. Hang on, I'm slow. All right, is everyone in a room? In a room? I guess I can't hear you. All right, so who is? Did I not put you?
Dr. Stone, you forgot to tell each group what question to do.
I know it.
said
I'm going to do
leave
that.
and come back.
I'm going to do that with the broadcast message.
Okay, then let's put me back with group 1.
Group 1.
Oh, I might have just joined on my own. Never mind, I got it.
Months.
We've had this
Hey,
one.
group 1, are you all clear?
Yes.
You
Yes.
got what? Question 1?
Question 1 in the overview.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. And I'm giving you about 20 minutes. You'll get a broadcast saying it's over. So,
Okay.
all right. I'm bye.
And then it says
of it. Oh, like you have to Do you go to
Yeah,
the Blackboard shelf for today, July 19th? And at the bottom it'll say case 1 or case study 1, and that's got the questions at the
I
end.
got you. Perfect. Okay, now I see what you're saying.
Yeah, and there's just 4 questions.
Anybody have any questions?
Yeah.
About 20 minutes. You've got question 2, right?
Yes.
Sure.
All right. I'll send out a broadcast when I want you, about 20 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can't give them any option for deniability.
That's true. And I would suspect that they'd immediately take him off the substitute list, obviously.
All right, you got question 3. Any questions about 20 minutes?
20 minutes.
Yeah, you got to have your answers, perfect answer.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Didn't I just see you all?
You
You
did.
did.
All right.
Him take nude photos. She said it continued for a while until one night he brought 2 other students to the photo session. Sookie now. She said it quickly became obvious that the other 2 girls were also allowing him to take nude photos.
Any
She
questions?
said that they were.
Is this the right case study?
Yeah, it's about Molly.
Yeah, about Molly. Yes. He
Okay.
said that he asked the 3 girls to take group
And then.
Hey, group 5.
Hey there.
Y'all have question
Hi.
4, right?
Yep. You
All
said
right.
question 4?
Everything okay?
Yes.
All right.
I guess my one question out of the 2 states then would be the verbiage that starts, because it's talking about reporting it to the legal or the law enforcement. And I'm wondering for,
Everyone okay?
yeah.
I'm beginning to think I lost you all. We started off with 24. I'm missing 6 of you. Oh, that was sneaky. Oh, here they come. All right, I think everyone's back. So thank you very much for helping me with this. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm recording again. So the important part of a case study, of course, is to give you an opportunity to talk about in your groups some of the facts that you were responsible for, and then to address certain questions about how you would handle something, maybe within some time limits as well. So that's the beauty of a case study. The other beauty of a case study is you all are going to be so glad this is not sitting on your desk tomorrow morning, because it's going to require some time to think through it, think about your processes, think about what you need to do. So a case study is a safe environment to talk about something that when we finish this Zoom session, it is no longer a problem. It is a problem for somebody somewhere, but it's no longer a problem for us and Molly. So let's get started. All right, group one, you were basically to give me a quick little overview and then to answer question one. But the way I want to do this in group one, what do we know about Molly before you had the conversation with her? Group one.
She was a former student, I believe.
Say that again, Sean.
Former student, I believe, of, yep.
Right,
Yep. So and then the pictures and there's just, the pictures, the indecent pictures or whatever, asked to photograph or something like that. So.
All right, so we know she is a former student. We know other information. Yeah. She's a waitress. She still lives in town. She's got cousins that go to the public school. All right. So group one, what do we know after the conversation from the little case study that you were shared with someone in group other than Sean, someone else in group one? What are the other facts that we now know about Molly?
We know that she has trust issues because of a former teacher, the teacher that they're talking about in the case study. We know that she worked in a group where she thought she was going to in the Spanish group, but ended up taking photographs that firstly started out inappropriate anyway, but then ended up being nude photographs. And she wants to stay anonymous.
Okay, big thing there. Now we know a little bit more of the facts of the case based on what Molly tells us. So now we have that perception of Molly, her experience. But the key thing that you mentioned there, Angela, was at the very end, Molly says, oh, please don't tell anybody. All right, keep that in mind. Molly is requesting anonymous. Molly just wants you to know it, maybe for some other reason, but Molly is sharing something with you and has requested that you kind of hold on to it. All right, so question one what will you do with the information? So group one, what would you do with this information that Molly has now laid on your plate?
At this point, you still have to treat it as if it just happened now. You would need to report it so an investigation could take place, because that same individual could still be doing those same activities and so forth.
Yeah, but didn't this happen 7 years ago? Isn't there a statute of limitations?
It does not matter.
Good answer. There is no statute of limitations for someone taking advantage of a child. None, period. Good answer. All right, so that's what we know, and that's, all right, so Ms. Richardson, what are you going to do with this information before, and think about that, but before, let's talk about the scenario a little bit more. Molly approaches you, we don't know whether or not there are people around. The first thing you need to do with Molly is, if she wants to talk with you, number one, do you tell her to make an appointment Monday? No, you do not. Molly's got something she needs to share. Molly's not coming to see you Monday. Molly is uncomfortable. She's just taking advantage of a one-time opportunity that she sees you and she knows that this is on her chest. Molly's not coming to see you for that 9 o'clock appointment Monday. Might as well forget it. So you cannot, in any case, you really do need to stop what you're doing to see whether or not it is something that is essential, which Molly is sharing something that's essential. Now, if it were something about my child's grade, make an appointment Monday. That is not a criminal activity. So you've got to hear a little bit about it. Now, if you're in a crowded restaurant, that's not the most appropriate place to have a conference like this. Nor is it, even if Molly's telling you about her grades, it is not the appropriate place. Everyone deserves a right to privacy. So what would you suggest, group one, where would you suggest that you have this meeting with Molly? in the cafeteria where there may be other people around, or would you want to go outside to the park, outside to the bench or something?
Anywhere that would have like a private area, even if it was a separate room within where you all were, you all could meet there. You could go outside, as you say, like a bench or a little picnic table, something. Just tell you want to go to a more private area so you can be sure, no one's listening, and kind of actually make sure you're hearing everything clear and accurately as to what you're saying there, to give you opportunity to take notes, to jot down exactly what's being stated.
All right, would you take notes?
Yeah, if you're a forgetful person, but I would think so. But I know she's saying she kind of wanted to stick with you, but you also need to let her know that, you would need to do something further with this information.
All right, absolutely correct. You cannot, you have to let her know up front. Whatever you tell me, you lay on my plate. If it's illegal, I cannot guarantee confidentiality. Now, if it were me, and there is no real answer on this, I probably would not take notes, because I think Molly may be a tad bit intimidated that she didn't want it reported, and here I am just jotting down notes. What Molly's telling me is not something that it is something that is critical, but it is not something that I'm going to need minute notes for. And remember, your notes are now public record and can be subpoenaed and can be shared with law enforcement. So if you want to take notes, just keep in mind, be aware of what Molly wants. Be aware that whatever you write on that paper, if you write on there, Molly is lying, or Molly is telling me this with a smirk on her face, you're going to see it. So if you take notes, be careful. There's nothing wrong with it, but just be a little careful. Just know that you are doing an investigation when you start taking notes.
But Molly has been waiting a long time to get that off her chest. She just was eager to get that off her chest.
To you, but she's not quite so eager to get it off to someone else. But the point is, take it to a private spot. Take notes if you want. My personal preference would be to not, because you don't want to go into too many details. You just want to get the basic facts so you can deal with it at the next stage. All right, so would you take your husband back to sit with you while you're talking to Molly? No, you'd want to do it by yourself to respect Molly's privacy. So remember, privacy, giving Molly a free space, a good space. Do not make an appointment. All right. Did we answer everything for group one? Did you guys feel like your question has been answered? All right, group two. Let's talk about, what do we know about Mr. Moss before we had this conversation?
What do we know about him before we had the conversation?
Yep.
That he was a teacher at Molly's high school
Right.
previously, and if we were the
Is he a
person,
good
we would-
teacher?
was he a good teacher?
All right. We don't know.
No, I don't know. I wouldn't know that if he was a good teacher or not, but I would think that he retired from the school system, because now he's back and he is substituting, and normally that's what retirees do.
Right. So we know he's a former teacher. He retired, which means he wasn't fired, which means
Yeah.
there probably is not something in his folder if you were to go to look at it. So we can only assume that
Yeah.
he had a charming personality. He really liked to talk with young girls. We can only assume that, but we don't know that because
Yeah.
there's nothing in his file. He would have been fired otherwise. All
Yeah.
right, so now what do we know about Mr. Moss, and what are we going to do about him? Somebody, group two.
We were saying that we would definitely report this to the authorities, although she's asking not to relay this information to anyone else. But when we look at the very last part of this case study, and I was looking here when it says that now her cousin is attending the school, and he comes to her cousin and says, it says Mr. Moss has spoken to her and said that he knew Molly. So he is approaching the cousin now, and he's saying, hey, and you remind me of your cousin Molly. And
Doesn't that
you
send
know she
shivers
used to
down your
help me."
spine?
Yes, it's like a pervert. That's how I felt.
A groomer. A groomer.
Yes, yes,
All
yes,
right,
yes.
so what are you going to do? Right now, what are we going to do with Mr. Moss? We're going to call who?
Oh, I would think that I would call, I wouldn't know who to call in terms of the superintendent, but I would definitely report this to the police, and I would try to get her to report this to the police as well. I would think that we would need to report this to legal authorities.
Are you going to leave it up to her to report it?
No, I would do it. I would definitely do it, and I would definitely get in touch with the direct principal of the school And it would be the principal's responsibility to report this to the superintendent.
All right, I don't know who does call substitutes in your building or not in your building, but in your district, but if it's a centralized district thing, somebody in HR needs to know about it because Mr. Moss does not need to be subbing in your school, any other school in the county until his name is clear. Now, that doesn't mean that he is guilty. It just
That's
simply
right.
means we have a viable charge that we need to follow up on before we let him back around children. All right, good job.
I got a question.
Okay.
If we don't have a centralized system that controls substitutes, how do we get that information out to, or is that fall under what human resources does? Or is it our role to make sure other people know it?
No, it is not your, it is your role to let human resources know it.
No, okay.
Okay.
It is not your role to call every principal in the district and say, don't hire Mr. Moss again, because at that point you are slandering Mr. Moss because you don't have enough information or the facts. At that point, you are in bad shape if he takes you to court. You let the HR people handle it. They know how to. All right, so group 3, how would you handle this? Kind of repeat it, but let's see what group 3 has to say.
So we would call law enforcement. We would not discuss it with the retired teacher or anybody else. We would just contact law enforcement and whatever school personnel we're supposed to contact for situations like this.
Okay.
And then let them handle it from there.
All right, exactly. So do you tell your staff, let's say, Ms. Lackey, that Sarah is coming to you Monday and she wants Mr. Moss to sub for her class. She's always liked Mr. Moss in her class. The kids love him. Sarah doesn't know about him yet. But what would you say to Sarah, Jennifer?
I feel like I would just let her know that she needs to contact another sub. I don't know that I wouldn't give a reason why.
No, you
Mr.
wouldn't.
Moss is unavailable. You need to contact another sub.
No, you wouldn't give any more information available. That's really up for the district at this point.
Right.
Remember, once you report it, and we'll talk about this in group 4, because I'm sure they're going to make this a point that the 2 references you have, North Carolina law, South Carolina law, are really pretty clear about what you got to do. But just remember that once you've reported it, you need to step aside. You don't need to be talking about it with your teachers. You don't need to be talking about it with anyone else in the district, because at that point, you are hindering an investigation that's coming. And trust me, if Mr. Moss finds out that Jennifer's been out there just spreading all sorts of vicious rumors about him based on what one student said, and they may not be true, Jennifer, you're going down.
Right.
So you don't need to, once you've reported it, you need to be quiet about it and refer everything down to the central office. Those people have been trained to handle that. All right, group 4, legal ramifications and the references that you're going to cite from me. Group 4, I know there are some of you in it.
I'm not sure if I was in group 4, to be honest.
I'm
think
sorry,
I
group
was
4,
in-
5, or 6. I'm sorry, 4, 5, or 6. Any one of the 3 groups.
Yeah, so we had from South Carolina, we would reference section 592460. And for North Carolina, section G.
All right, those are my references. And you are basically referencing state law. So group 4, 5, or 6, tell me the order in which you would call somebody to report this. Based on North Carolina law and South Carolina law. Look at it very carefully. I'm very familiar with North Carolina, it's not as much as South Carolina, but Mark, weren't you in this group? Read that first sentence from G.
Call law enforcement.
Who do you call next?
I would call the superintendent.
All right, or the superintendent's designate. Now, Mark, what happens if you call me as superintendent and you tell me that Mr. Moss is this, and this? Are you off the hook at that point from calling law enforcement?
No, I still have to report it.
Right, you should have reported to them first before you reported to me. North Carolina law is very clear. Law enforcement, then central office or whoever is responsible for getting this kind of information. South Carolina, I would recommend you do the very same. Now, as Mark superintendent, I may say, Mark, why did you call law enforcement before you call me? 115C 288G. Because if Mark, yes, Wendy.
When in that situation, when you say call law enforcement, Does that include notifying the SRO?
Your SRO is is law enforcement.
Okay, so I don't actually contact them because what we've been told is everything goes to SRO and they handle that communication.
Right, that's, and once you give it to your SRO, that is law enforcement. You have met the requirements of the law. Yes, good point. And I would recommend you work with your SRO because you have already built a relationship with them. That would be my go-to person. Now, once they get it, they are responsible for making sure the sheriff or the police chief or whoever else knows it. But your point of contact is an SRO. If you're in elementary school and you don't have an SRO, you may have one that's affiliated with your part of the county. That would be who I would recommend you reach out to. All right, so North Carolina law is very clear. The superintendent is second on your list. And Mark may not have called me as superintendent, but he probably would have called someone who is in charge of these kinds of things. It may not be the superintendent. It may be my assistant superintendent. So you in your district, like in Wake County, I would have no idea who you guys would call. You probably have a security officer that you would immediately contact who would get that information to the superintendent's office. So it may not be as clear as the superintendent. It depends on the district. So one of the things you want to do as an administrator is find out what chain of command you follow. But the first person is law enforcement. Because if Mark were to share that with me as superintendent and it sat on my desk and I didn't report it till 2 weeks later, after Mr. Moss had met another young lady in class, I would be the one responsible, but so would Mark. Because if Mark hadn't called law enforcement, it hadn't been reported. So don't depend on, I know you love your superintendents and your central office folks, but don't depend on them to follow the law, well, they will follow the law, but don't depend on them to do your responsibility. And the responsibility is pretty clear that you are to notify law enforcement. All right, are there any questions? So the purpose of the case study was to take a very safe case, which was an ugly, nasty case, to talk about it and to bring it back to the concept of your legal, your moral and ethical responsibilities. So class, in issues like this, what do we look to for our decision-making? What do we look to make a decision about how we handle this? It's pretty clear, right? North Carolina is 115 state 288. South Carolina is what, 60, 24, 6, no, 59, 24, whatever, 60. All right. Are there any questions about this case study? Thank you for participating. Such a large group. All right. We're going to take a 5-minute break. I'm going to close out this session so we can start recording. I will send you another link immediately for us to come back in about 3 or 4 minutes, because I want to very quickly go through some of the other things, the other thing that we need to do. All right. See you back in about 5.
Where will you send the other link to?
I will send it quickly, so it'll come to your Garner Web email.
Okay.